I need Frank over you in the middle, actually.
So I would like all of you, here's how I'd like to see. Brett, Pat, Frank, Veronica, and Tom on the end. Yeah, I gotta tell you all, I called or texted you all and just said, hey, I need a favor. Would you just show up? And not one of you asked me what we were doing. That is a great amount of trust, and I really appreciate that. I was shocked. I thought for sure it'd be like, what are we doing? Why? And all of you are like, sure. And the reason that you're all here is because as I thought about it, every one of you was here from the very, very beginning. You think about our real day one. We've had 2 day ones. We've had our day one in here that many people know about. We had cameras and took all that. It was like, that was easy. But you were all here for like the day one that we had some pictures, and that's it. And that was such a unique and powerful start. I don't know if you remember this, but on the very first day, we needed to raise $50,000. I came up with that number in my head. I did not call the sermon, hey, I need $50,000. I talked about crazy faith. I don't know if some of you remember this, but I was leaning on a bean pole, wrapped, you guys remember that? I was wrapped around, and I talked about not being scared, of just taking big, bold steps and doing that. And the great thing was, and all of you gave to it, that next weekend, we raised in 1 week $24,000 or $23,000. And everybody was like, that's incredible. And I was like, we're still $27,000 short. Like, it's a crazy, crazy story. But my first question is, why were you in?
Well, I think when you talk about day one, there was a few folks doing a little work ahead of time, but to me it was the family atmosphere. I mean, we got to, don't get a big head, but we really enjoyed listening to your sermons and your message and the way you brought it. And you had such a passion. And so when you were away praying about and thinking about things and doing plans like that, it was time for us to pray too. And, all of us talking together. And I think that you just showed a passion that it just spilled out to the rest of us.
I didn't get the social gene, just to be like social. I just have the gene to love seeing a new face come in a church. Yeah. And at the prior church that I attended, I didn't see a lot of new faces. And if we saw new faces, I didn't feel like they were welcomed. And so that was my passion for wanting to be a part of River Lake Church.
I've been to churches where, you're sitting in somebody else's pew, or, you don't feel welcome. And then, but from day one, when we started River Lake Church, that was one of the strong things that, everybody is welcome at River Lake Church. Yeah. And I like working in the parking team. Like Brett said the other day, we're the spear point. We're out there in front, and we're the first people to greet someone, yeah. And I just feel good doing that. That's and that's one of the reasons I do what I do. I just enjoy seeing the new people come and really enjoy them when they come the second time. Those are the people you're looking for. So.
Yeah, we did something right the second time they
yes.
come back. We didn't scare them away.
Yes.
And so, no, that's huge. And you're right. You guys are this. That's a great image. That Spear Point. Like, you are. Every study, I think, tells us that people make a decision about whether they're going to come back to a church before the pastor ever walks out and speaks. And I think I've said that to you all at some point in time. I'm like, listen, I can mess it up, but I can't make it happen. You know, I can get up there and then be like, oh, I don't like this guy, you know, we're not coming back. But before I ever walk on stage, it really is all of you and so many other volunteers that really make people feel welcome and loved. And it's so important what we do. And so, it's Veronica.
For me, we had gone to church that it's split, and we were just kind of waiting to see where we were going to land next. And you were doing kind of the same thing, and you came back, and what you wanted was what David and I wanted. Not that the other church was bad, it just wasn't really for us. We wanted it to be outward focused, not so much inward focused. And I think that's from day one why we started, and we've done that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have reached out to this community in such a way, and it makes me so proud when other people, I hear them bragging about our church and what we do for other people.
For me, it was that it's a God thing. It's so clear to me that God has moved in creating this church. And, you know, we came up from a place of disappointment and just disillusioned with tradition and just kind of hungry to see something different. And I love how different the church is, that River Lake is. I don't always get everything, and everything's not always for me, and I'm fine with that, because I have a trust that it's a God thing, and God is going to do stuff that I don't understand, and I'm just honored to get to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I mean that's one of our core values, that we'll be unlike anyone else to reach everyone else, and we don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, if you all remember the history, like our first day in Ralphie's, the Easter Sunday, it's one of my favorite memories. Was we had no clue. Like, we were praying. There was about 60 or 70 of us at the time. We'd been holding services for maybe 2 months behind the scenes with this big day. And I remember praying, but super anxious, thinking, is anybody going to show up? You know, like, we've done all this. We did the flyers, and we did all that kind of stuff. And then, man, people poured in. Like, we had, I think, 120 something chairs set up, and that day we had 278 people show up. Brett, I know you were at least standing up in the back. Frank, you probably were standing up in the back. Some of you others, I know you were in sound probably doing something, Tom. And I mean, it was an incredible start. We did not know what to expect. It was so different, and then that day, it will always ring in my mind, because the sound of the nails dropping
That was awesome.
and the metal cans. And we just talked about, you know, really, it's all about the nail. And that really was the start of our church, in making sure that we have experiences that really try to inspire and motivate and keep things relevant, simple, and real. And yet, it was not easy. You've all heard me talk about, with my great leadership, we went from 278 people to about 64 in the middle of the summer, and man, that was a low moment, and yet 7 years, a long time. It's a lot of opportunities for good and bad, and you know, what is your favorite moment?
Probably the event would be our first candy jam.
Yeah,
Yeah, we had no idea what was going on. We talked about
and
it.
no idea what we were doing.
Exactly.
I mean, we kind of had a plan, but
Sure.
seeing that line was crazy. I mean, if
Yeah.
I could have been selling hot dogs for $5 a pop, we'd be pretty good.
Yes.
So, but the look on the kids' faces, you know,
Oh, yeah,
they're all there. you
especially
know.
the look on the kids' faces when that's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very
That's-
special.
yes.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
we'll probably top it somehow, but there's always a first.
I think for me would have been the night before. I guess this is a personal best moment, but
Yeah.
the night before we opened this church on Sunday. and there may have been more here, but I definitely know you were still here, Jan was still here, I was still here, and I'm like, we've got to get some rugs. We don't have rugs out here. And Noah went to Lowe's, got rugs, or I sent Stan, I'm not sure and then it was like, I believe it was 9 or 10, and Jen's like, you're just gonna have to go on, we're gonna have to go. Whatever we got, we got.
Yeah.
That day, I know another volunteer and I were at Walmart, we're like, there's just so many things we gotta make sure we've got out here, and like the excitement of that was really overwhelming. It was a very, very good day.
I think probably the first let hope in. When you know, we were working, setting people and everything, and then just before it got started, you know, we were down front and looked back, and then you just saw a sea of people, you know, and I said, "Oh man, what have we done?" You know, oh, goodness gracious, yes, that was great. Yeah, that was that was a moment.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I have to agree. That was a very
Yeah.
special, because not only the families that we were able to reach, and it's the first time we really came out in public about how different we were going to be, and that to me I think was the very special moment.
Yeah. Tom?
Well, if I had time to think about it, I'd probably come up with something different. But what pops in my head is two things. One was the construction and demolition in the building. The camaraderie with the guys, the work that we got to do, that we got to really put our shoulders into it, and it just felt good to do. And the other was back at Ralphie's, when we were praying with our hands on the walls, and going and grabbing the backs of the chairs, and the prayer and the spirit that accompanied the prayer was just palpable, and it was, I still kind of get goosebumps thinking about that for some reason.
Yeah. It's I remember that. We've got pictures of that moment, actually, and it's a powerful moment, because you all prayed for me too, and that was a very humbling moment, and we've come a long way. And Pat, you mentioned the night before we came in here, and that's one of mine too. I mean, we were here, it was crazy, and it really was. We had 100 things left to do, and it was what it was. It was like, okay. And that day was such a great day. I mean, if you remember, the tagline was, one day became day one, and it was a new adventure for us. And the reason it was possible was because in 2016, late 2016, and then the early 2017, we started a Bold campaign. And we got people together, and we talked about the vision of our church. And again, I was tired. We were doing 3 services. I didn't want to do, we couldn't do 4. Ralphie's was like, no, get out. You can't do Saturday night. You can't do it any later Sunday. And no one wanted to come to a 6 o'clock service in the morning. So we felt stuck. And we had tried a building campaign unsuccessfully, 20 Mile March. I don't know if you remember that one. That did not go over well. And yet we came back. Veronica, you came with us. We went to a company, and they told us how to do a building campaign, and we did that. And in 2017, we talked about the empty chair. I don't know if you all remember that concept. We had those hard white chairs. And that squeaked, yes. We actually marked them with X's. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Those poor chairs. If you walk back in there, you're like, that one squeaks, that one squeaks. You're like, how did you know? I'm magical. And so, but we talked about that. The vision of our church really is kind of what Pat's been talking about, which is it's about the guest. It's about who's next. It's about we're going to sacrifice the things we love for those we love. And our desire to do that. And every single one of you here, you all made a significant contribution to that campaign. Significant. And what some of you may not know is actually every one of you, you put your name on the guarantor, the deed, to co-sign for that loan. Like, it's not an understatement to say we would not be in this building right now if you all would not have signed on the dotted line. And as a pastor, I got to tell you, it was it was one of the heaviest moments of my leadership because it was very real. It was like every one of you and your families, you gave a significant amount, but you also said, I'm tying my life to this. And so humbling. And I guess when I think about that, and I think about the risk involved with that, because if this goes south, you're on the line for a lot of money, not just what you gave, but you're on the line for a lot of money to make this happen. Why would you do that?
You got to have faith. You got to believe. I mean, I think we all believe in this church. I mean, we are part of this church in more ways than one. So, yeah, it was a lot of thinking about it. You gave us time to think and pray and talk to others about it and what they, our family and stuff. But really, when it comes down to it, it was a no-brainer. Just let's do this. We got this.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when your family needs help, you help them out.
That's right.
That's, and the church is, this church is our family. So,
And
so.
like Thomas said multiple times, God's been all over this. I mean, and you knew it from the get-go. God's in control. It's not ours anyway. We're just giving back what He's given us for a short period of time. So, to me, I knew we were going to be fine. I'm definitely the risk taker between my husband and myself. I'm the risk taker. But it wasn't hard even for Stan to say, this really isn't that big of a risk. I know it's a risk, but it's not a big risk. We know who's leading this church, and God's leading the church, but we've got a physical leader in you.
There was a time when we built our house, and that was a big commitment. I guess the biggest commitment personally was, and kind of being a young Christian at that time, I was a little bit concerned about, what if God wants me to do something? Will this house be that important to me that I'll be like, no, I can't do what you want because we got to keep this house. And I didn't want that ever to be the case. I didn't want stuff to be more important than God. And so, yeah, I feel like this is an opportunity to be a part of what God's doing. And it's more important than stuff.
One of the things that's happened, and we've talked about it tonight, is, and Pat, you mentioned it, is there's not been a weekend where we've not had a guest. And that's really what we aspired for. It's what our Bold campaign was about. It was about the people that weren't here yet. Is the people that we believed that God was going to bring, that we were going to be a blessing to. And again, when we talk about we sacrifice the things we love for those we love, sometimes it's people we don't even know yet. And so what I know is I could sit here and I could thank you and it would be okay. But actually what I want to do is, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people show up since the start of this church, since day one. And we've invited some of them here tonight to talk to you and thank you themselves. And so we're going to let them in right now.
Wow. Neat. It's a lot of familiar faces.
So every person that's walking in right now, many of you didn't know at the time. None of them were coming. And you gave to an empty chair.
That's okay.
So my name's Amy Reese. I have been coming here for a little over 2 years now. From the first day that I walked through these doors, my life drastically changed. We were sitting over there in the second row, third seat, and Pastor Nick was talking about a penny, that everybody holds on to a penny. It could be addiction, porn. He said some more things, and then he said, or a bad relationship that you know you're not supposed to be in. And it just hit me. And at this time, I'd been in this toxic, abusive, very bad situation for 13 years. And I left here feeling different. The next day, I took my morning beating as usual, and God told me, get out, today's the day, he's going to kill you. I mean, you have to go. I hadn't left in that situation, money, material things, I'll just be honest. And that day I left with nothing, absolutely nothing. But I continued to come here every Sunday I came. I felt like there was something different about this church, something different. I felt welcomed. I didn't have to fake anything. I just felt so welcome. So as I continued to come, I mean, even though I had nothing for a small time, God, he just put people in my life. He put blessings in my life. I meet my now husband. God is so much in our marriage. This church, you know, you walk a different way. And when me and James met, we both wasn't looking, but we had this friendship, and it was just amazing. He had already been saved. He hadn't been baptized. I invited him to church, so then he eventually got baptized. We got engaged. We didn't want to live in sin, so after 9 months, you know, we got married. And like I said, God is in our marriage, and it's so strong, and that makes all the difference. I mean, there's just so much here. I just want to tell you a few more blessings. My business, especially last year with COVID, you know, small business, it was a struggle. I've always been the Christian just to throw that 20 in the plate, you know. I started last year really, even though I was here 2 years, last year I just really truly started tithing. And I could just see the difference God has made in my life. When you're faithful to God, he will truly be faithful to you. And my business, I've been open almost 18 years, and I have never had a November like I had this year. And all these blessings has came from me sitting at that chair. I'll never forget that chair. And like I said, it's just one blessing after the next blessing after another blessing. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but I just want y'all to know that this church has changed my life drastically and so much for the better. And thank you all for giving and supporting this church, because if not for you all, my life wouldn't have changed. Thank you all. I love you. God bless.
Yeah.
You know, something y'all probably never would have thought of when y'all helped start the church. Y'all really had changed an entire generation of our family.
So several years ago, we lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and at that point in our life, we had lived out of state for a while. And at some point during that time, my older sister, Whitney, had started coming to River Lake. She found River Lake and had invited my mom. My mom is not a person I had known to go to church, to ever be a part of a church. And for my mom to be all in, there had to be something special about this place. And so every time I would come in to visit from Louisiana, she would drag me right along with her on Sunday morning and visit River Lake. And one Sunday, we were in to celebrate Easter, and we came to church on Sunday morning, and these glow sticks were handed out. And Pastor Nick was talking about your brokenness being beautiful, God making your brokenness beautiful. And I was broke. I was in a horrible place, in a dark place, and I was broke. And all the lights went out. And Pastor Nick counted to 3. And he said, if you want your brokenness turned to beauty, you have to ask God into your heart. And so I cracked my glow stick on 3. And in that moment in Ralphie's, I asked God to become my Lord and Savior. And so that was where my walk with God began.
I stayed home. We lived in Louisiana. Yeah, we lived in Louisiana. Actually, I was at a New Orleans Pelicans game in the Smoothie King Arena that Easter. I didn't come home every time we visited, and we were at a point actually at that time where we were struggling with the time we had been away from Kentucky, and whether we wanted to be closer to home or not. So work was crazy, so I stayed home, and it was really like I think 2 months later, roughly, we came home for Mother's Day weekend. And just like her mom, now that I didn't know it, but now that she's all in, she drove me to church. I remember her asking after we left that day. She said, "Well, what'd you think?" And no offense, but I said, "Well, it was church." And
So little did he know that night, like he said, we were struggling. We were trying to figure out where we were supposed to be. And I laid down that night and I was thinking about what our next step was and what our moves were going to be. And I just started praying. God, tell me where I'm supposed to be. Am I supposed to move home with my family? Am I supposed to be happy in Louisiana? Am I supposed to make it work? I just need you to tell me where I'm supposed to be and I will make it work. But I need you to tell me clear cut, no doubt about it, where I'm supposed to be.
And I wasn't in the same place as she was, spiritually. But it was kind of funny. The next morning, we woke up and I just happened to check my phone, and I had a message from a friend that said, "Hey, there may be a potential job opportunity in Louisville," and
He showed me that text that morning or the email that morning, and I didn't really say a whole lot then. And I didn't really say a whole lot for most of the day. We had went to Russellville to celebrate Mother's Day with his mom and his grandmother, and we're on our way back. And he looked at me and he was like, "So what do you think about the offer?" And I'm looking out the window. I remember this moment perfectly. I'm looking out the window and tears just welled up in my eyes. And I was like, turned and looked at him and I was like, "You can't make fun of me for what I'm about to tell you." And he agreed not to make fun. And I said, "I prayed last night for an answer of where we were supposed to go, what we were supposed to do." And then we woke up to that email.
I think the rest of the ride home, it's 10 or so hour drive. The rest of that drive home, we talked about kind of how she had been watching online, which for 3 or 4 years ago, for this area would have probably been nuts, and you guys were doing that. But she had been watching online, and so I started, from that point on watching online, and ended up getting the job, and of course we moved to Louisville, and we haven't missed too many Sundays hardly at all since the day we moved to Louisville, and so
you guys went from, you took a family whose mom and grandmother never was consistent in a church, to a husband and wife who didn't talk about religion, didn't know God, had nothing to do with it, to a wife asking her husband not to make fun of her for praying.
And really all the way to a point now, like when you look across our family that attends this church, we've had, like I said, an entire generation transformed through 6 people who have come to salvation and been baptized here at River Lake. And
the most recent one is our 9-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So thank y'all.
So, Matthew Hayes. So I'm sure everybody's got a story, of redemption, and mine's no different. For me, secular my whole life. No God in my life, no God in my family. Didn't believe in it, really didn't even put the time in, even worrying about it. Broken my whole life. Just went on, thinking I can fix every problem my way. And then, 4 years ago, tragedy. My daughter passes away, suicide, and I look around and I'm like, I can fix this still. I can still fix this. But I get this calling, and for me, I feel like I have to. There's something I'm just missing, but I'm still living my life, my secular life. I'm indifferent, married, kids, stepkids, and continue going on, and kind of start getting this feeling, that something needs to change, but everything in my life was just broken. My marriage was broken. My relationships with everybody was broken. So it all come crashing down, and I looked around. I was sitting there in the most broken that I've ever been in my life, completely alone, not knowing what to do. And Jesus comes into my heart like it's undescribable. It's a feeling. It's a calling that you just can't deny. And I go to that, and so River Lake had to be there for me, a church that could accept me for me, a church that I was able to know I have my past. I know my past. My past is checkered, and I sinned, and I have been broken, and I've lost a lot. But then, I was redeemed in Jesus here, and this is my family. I love it here. I'm so thankful for this church. I don't think my story is all the way written yet. I'm being tested a lot and called to do a lot of things. I love working with the kids. That's great. But the church being here for me changed my life. I sat in that pew right back there, and Jesus just touched me when I didn't have anything and there was nothing else. And I haven't really looked back yet, and I truly appreciate that. And for somebody that was a sinner like me, to be as broken as I was, to live that real world, to be redeemed and restored and changed. I mean, I'm nothing of who I was. There's only River Lake could have done that for me. There's no other church that could have done that for me, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Spent a lot of years in church, from the time I was 9 all the way up till 2015. But there was a big difference when I was 19 years old, and I ended up robbing a bank and going to prison. After that, the church that I was attending changed the way they treated me, the way they looked at my parents, the way they treated my brother, who since then has not returned to church once. I met Pam when I got out, and we got married, and she was never accepted into the church. I tried to stay there, and we did stay up until 2015. We had our kids there, and our kids were not included. They never felt welcome. Pam never felt welcome. Tried to make it work because that's where I felt I was supposed to be. I felt I was supposed to help teach. I was supposed to lead. And in 2015, I actually had the preacher come to me and tell me that I was an embarrassment to the church. I was an embarrassment to my family, my marriage. And I took that as an opportunity to strike out against God. And I chose to blame God. And I chose to hate God. Not deny Him, hate Him. At that point, everything went south. Everything. We argued more and more. Yelled at the kids more and more. Found myself looking for the virtual embrace of other women. And then decided that I wanted to do drugs again, and ended up bringing Pam down that wormhole with me, and got to where it was more than just a yelling. I was beating on her and got arrested, lost everything, and still hated God. Wasn't anywhere that I felt welcome. So from her love and the love of the kids, they pulled me back in, brought our family back together. And in 2018, Taylor went to Norton's for 15 days fighting for her life. 3 lung surgeries. And it wasn't until day 13 that they said she wasn't going to die.
I don't think I've ever prayed so hard, y'all, as I've prayed in my life in those 15 days. And at that point, that's the first time I had prayed in probably 7, 8 years. But I prayed hard because that's the only thing I knew to do at that point was to pray.
And when Taylor came home, we were standing on the back porch talking about returning to church. And I still didn't want to go. I knew that's where I was supposed to be. Pam and the kids went a few places. They would tell me about it. I would go, and then never failed. Somebody would recognize me. Somebody would remember my past. Somebody would remember the hooligan that I was. And then things started.
There churches that denied letting him serve because of his past. No, you can't serve here.
And once they see me come in with them, everything changed toward my wife and my kids. And then she found River Lake on Facebook. And she said, "You need to listen to this guy." I'm like, "All right, send me a link." A couple weeks later, she said, "What'd you think? Did you ever listen to him?" Nope. She sent me another link. She said, "Listen to him." A couple weeks later, "What'd you think?" I didn't listen to him. I said, "It looks like some kind of rock and roll church, and I just don't want to be a part of that." And I said, "I'm not going there." So next Sunday, we were here.
I gave him no other option.
But here's the part. Doug and June Little met us at the door that first day. And the smile on his face, it never went away, even after he found out who I was and what I'd done. Jan welcomed us when we come through. And in the 3 years, Jan's never looked at me any different, and she knows what I've done. I sat next up and I told Pastor Nick, I said, I can't stand pastors. And now he knows why. But I told him, I said, I'll probably never like you. I might listen to you. I might respect your teaching, but I will never like you. I said, how do you feel about felons in your church? And this is what I hear every time I see that man. It ain't your past, it's your future I care about. And that's never changed.
So how am I supposed to feel? It ain't that I'm worried about.
It's never changed. Everybody in this church has seen my testimony on the big screen. Everybody in CR has heard the long version. And nobody has looked at me any different. And the feeling that I had that I was supposed to lead and serve in Horse Cave, I lead here. I'm part of a small group, lead small group, serve on the parking lot. It's getting ready to get cold, so I might take a few weeks off.
You guys changed our family. We've got 3 kids that don't care to get up and go to church on Sunday morning. And that says a lot when it comes to teenagers. We've got, our middle one, she will, if we are hit the snooze button one too many times, she's in our bedroom going, y'all need to get up, it's time for church, it's time to get ready for church. And that's just amazing to me. And all the rejection that we got, we've never got that rejection here. We've always been accepted. We've always had a place where we can fall in, where we can fill in, where we feel welcome, where we feel wanted. And after a bag load of churches, you guys done it.
So we took up more time than we should have. Thank you for everything that you've done from the beginning. That empty chair that you saw, that you didn't know you were going to have me sit down in. I want you to know that I appreciate that chair being there. And I appreciate that everything you all planned for from the beginning. Thank you.
And so as we wrap it up, there's one more story I want you to hear. It's one more story that I didn't even know of until we started walking through this whole thing. And so I want to introduce you to a couple who's been coming for about a year now. And again, what you did has impacted them and their family in a big, big way.
Tessa, you're gonna make me cry.
Okay, so I'm Tessa, and this is my husband Josh. We've been coming since February. Before that, 13 years, I hadn't stepped foot in a church. I lost my mom when I was 16 to a car wreck, and I lost my dad when I was 19. He had a massive heart attack, so after that I was just angry with God, and I didn't have anything, to give to church. So at that point, we just quit coming, and so in February, our marriage was pretty well at an end. I'll let you tell your February story.
So I started coming in January. I am a recovering addict. Been an addict for like 21 years. I am 31. So in February, I realized that something needed to change in my life. I was about to lose everything I had, my family. So I told her if she would just come to church with me and kind of help me support myself, then I would change everything I was doing. And that's truly where my story began. I mean, our family began, I guess.
Yeah. So before that, we didn't even have God or Jesus in our home. Our kids, honestly knew nothing about anything about church or anything. We hadn't ever took our kids to church. So since February, we've only missed 2 days, and that's just because we were quarantined due to COVID. So anyways, we'll watch those online too. So, so we basically run into church now on Sundays. It's not something that we have to do. It's something like we want to be here. This is family to us now. This is not just a church. This is our family. This is our home, So thank you guys for everything that you've done for us and for our family.
Those are some of the stories. Behind me are dozens and dozens of stories. And what you all know is this is just a small glimpse of every single week. What started with about 30 or so people has blossomed into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, not to mention those online, not to mention those that we'll never meet. And you all, in a moment of clarity and yet huge risk, sacrificially gave, invested, leveraged temporal for the eternal. First 7 years, we had no clue what to expect. First 7 years, a small group of people were all in and started to change and redefine what church means for the city and this community. So from me and everybody here, thank you. At the same time, we're just getting started.
The best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. So thank you so much.